I saw this interview from an actress on House of the Dragon in Newsweek where she talked about how an intimacy coordinator was essential to feeling comfortable in the explicit scenes she did for the show.
Yep.
And I was immediately suspicious because I think that intimacy coordinators are the cynical HR reps of the entertainment industry.
Yeah, it's like a weird, like modern day, like it's even worse than HR.
Yeah, it is. It is worse, isn't it?
It's like at a regular job, HR is to stop the sexual exploitation stuff from happening. This one's like,
this is just making the process streamlined.
Somebody should make a sketch comedy series about like intimacy coordinators in the actual porn industry.
I mean, yeah, does that just mean any and all porn directors are considered intimacy coordinators? Like, basically. Where do you draw the line? Anyway, I'm going to read some quotes from her interview. Her name's Emily Carey. She plays Alicent Hightower in the show. And she had to film a couple of scenes with a 47-year-old co-star who is her husband in the show. And one of them was she had to bathe him, and then another one was a sex scene. So she said she had to read the scripts and take this role while she was still 17, by the way. She played this role for like 3 months while still 17.
Oh, I don't like this at all.
And remember what happened on original Game of Thrones with, what's her name? With the girl who grew up on the show and she was a child.
Yeah, I told the story last time. The one with the big eyes.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know her name because I didn't watch the show.
Nothing has changed.
Nope.
So she said, still being 17, the first scene that I read from the show was my sex scene and my intimacy scenes. That includes the scene where I'm bathing the king.
Wait, so there's is the intimacy coordinator only work during the intimate scenes, and is there like a sexual coordinator who only works? She said
that all of those scenes are just under the umbrella of intimate scenes.
I was being like derisive and sarcastic, but it's actually a fair enough question to ask.
She said that she was scared and she was concerned because she hadn't seen Game of Thrones before, and
I don't know
in pre-production watched the show for the first time and saw, of course, that they have a lot of graphic sexual violence in the original series. She wondered if she would have to do scenes like that. Mm-hmm. But then she said that the intimacy coordinator they had on set was really helpful and made it a lot easier than she thought it was going to be.
I also want to point out that I don't buy that she didn't know she would have to do that, because a lot of shows, if they lean heavily into this type of content, they put it in your contract that you have to, that like when the show Power got made, Courtney, the person who created that show, all the actors have nudity clauses in their contracts that say you may have to do this.
Yeah.
You're agreeing to do this. There's no way she didn't know that.
Yeah, and it's insane to me that you can contractually obligate an underage actor to do things that only an adult actor can do.
Do you think that they were trying to specifically give her exposure to like, this is what you'd be have to doing in case she doesn't want the role? Like,
they should steel man that argument. Like, look, if you can't handle doing this, you need to not apply.
Like, they filmed these scenes when she was 17?
No, this was filmed after she turned 18 while they already were filming.
So like, it's all weird, right? But like, if they were like, these are the scenes that your character will do, like, we need you to know right off the bat if you're comfortable, with the acknowledgement that like she was going to be 17 by the time production started.
18 by the time.
And the fact that she was 17 when she signed her contracts means her parents co-signed it, which I find disgusting.
Yep.
Also, which is just so typical of parents in the entertainment industry.
But I guess theoretically they could have been like, cool, well, your parents won't sign it, we'll come back to you in 3 months and give you the contract then.
But she was already filming while still not 18
They
yet.
just couldn't do those scenes until she was
which
18.
is even more like gross, and they're just doing this in broad daylight.
And it is funny too, because they usually go out of their way to not hire people under 18 in a lot of these cases, because it minimizes the amount of hours you can work. Mm-hmm. It severely limits your schedule. So they're like, actually, I don't know, if they're not filming in the U.S., that might not matter as much.
There are a lot of countries that have laws about this.
But it would also be, I guess it would probably be more tied to their union than it would be to the place they're living. Maybe
it's like a mix. Yeah.
So it is interesting to me that they couldn't just find a 19-year-old.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Because they also have a 22-year-old playing a teenager in the show.
The girl
I'm
who
not
plays,
saying that I totally agree with that either.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying it's possible to cast someone who's
the
an
same
adult.
thing happened when we were watching Rings of Power. Nori.
Nori's 22 and she plays like a 13, 14-year-old.
She looks like a child.
On Gilmore Girls, the girl who plays Rory's best friend is in her 30s, and she's playing a teenager.
But it's also funny.
Alexis Bledel was like 18, 19.
Back in the day, they used to joke about how like the people. I mean, it's still kind of like that. Like the people who play high schoolers never look like high schoolers.
Yeah.
But now it's getting closer because like the joke is like they just live. We live such pampered lives now that you don't age as fast as you did. There's those great videos you can find on like Instagram and TikTok of like it's like a guy's. The camcorder must have been this big to bring it to his local high school in the 90s, and they all look like middle-aged people look like now.
Right, and it's not just how they dressed and their hairstyles either. I think they did genuinely look older.
They aged faster.
I know this. You'll like this one. Her parents are involved in the theater industry themselves. Like,
interesting.
That is very interesting, is it not?
And she identifies as queer.
Yeah, I saw Emily Carey, who identifies with she, they pronouns. Then they continue to use only she, her pronouns throughout the articles here.
I have a question to ask. I asked you this question earlier. I want to know, what is the benefit? She, her, I get. They, them, I get, even if I would never do it. I guess, whatever. What is the benefit of she, they, and how does it differentiate? Does that completely make her not possible?
Well, I think it means call me they them, but if and it's optional, but if you call me she her, it's still frowned upon.
So the her is implied in the she?
Yeah. Yeah, because it's the same tense, right?
Yes.
Like she, her, they, them. So I think they're saying that she can be she, her / they, them, and it's all acceptable.
But it's a little bit less woke to call her she
I think
her.
It's like, yeah, I use cisgender pronouns, but like I'm okay with being gender non-binary.
The same thing happened with Demi Lovato when she added she her back to her pronouns. All the articles that went out of their way to refer to her as they them immediately switched back to referring to her as she her, because it's just how the language works.
It's so hard to write constantly in they them pronouns about a singular person.
Yep.
It's like a very difficult challenge. I don't like.
Well, I really do believe
somebody's gonna clip this clip of me one day and be like, "She was always a bad journalist." I stand by it.
I believe they do it. I believe that there's maybe not all of them, in a lot of the kids who've just been raised into this sort of ideology see it as actually who they are. But I think that a lot of the people early on were a lot less honest in their intentions, and I think they like making it harder on other people. I think just the fact that you can limit. We've done a couple of topics where I've had to stop talking about someone because I kept screwing it up, and so I just gave up on talking about it. I think they enjoy the control.
Well, this is really besides the point, but I can see why someone raised by people in like theater and the film industry would
explain what her parents do. And Mary's like, I understand why they signed the contract now.
Yeah,
pulling it back.
But to be fair, what I mean is that like if
thank you.
She gets this contract, she's like, I really want to do this job. I'm going to be 18 soon anyways. If they're already in the industry, they're like, yes, huge deal. Good for your career. Better than protecting you. More important, like,
it's just complete permission for everything.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Many times did your heads break on Friday?
Look at that.
The sound.
Beautiful entertainment, not an intimacy
Weirdly,
coordinator
hearing
inside.
that 26 times in a row did not faze me at all. I'm just like...
Did you get good about talking through it, or did you get as distracted as I do every time?
I don't think it distracts me.
I talk right through it now.
But
like, I just want to point out, no intimacy coordinator needed. Plenty of entertainment value here.
Yes.
So to be fair, we're all sitting like very far apart from one another.
That's a fair point.
It's like we don't even need one because the furniture is our intimacy.
So there was this quote from her interview that I wanted to read because it's especially insidious. She said, "It was empowering being on that set as a young girl and being treated the same as all of these very established men." And I just want to point out, I don't think that a teenage girl on a set should be treated the same way as a middle-aged man with an established career. And if she is being treated the same way, it's disingenuous.
And nefarious.
It's supposed to inflate her ego so that she's distracted from her natural discomfort at the idea of simulating sex on screen.
Yeah, also,
in front of millions of people.
There is an implication here that she is supposed to behave like a middle-aged established man. Like,
and I can
not.
just
That
see
seems
this
creepy.
down the line turning into another one of these stories that is like, at the time I thought it was a good idea, but actually, like, I was pressured into it. I wasn't comfortable, blah, blah, blah.
As you know, is my biggest
Which
pet
the intimacy
peeve.
coordinator is supposed to mitigate the risk of that happening.
The intimacy coordinator, I think, really is supposed to cover the liability of the theater production company.
Yeah, they're not there to make them feel more comfortable.
It's
they're there
like
to
when
make-
that was essentially
like,
my
hey,
take.
when a company's like, hey, can you talk to our lawyer? Like, it's to protect the company because that's who pays the lawyer's bills.
Yeah, I said intimacy coordinators are not inherently more compassionate than an HR rep because their goal is to streamline the process of this scene getting filmed, and if you make it difficult, you will get replaced. And secondly, to avoid liability or PR issues for the company.
And I want to know, are there male intimacy coordinators? I would bet.
You guessed that there might be if they're gay.
I actually believe. I don't believe that there will be straight male intimacy coordinators. I can see the industry seeing it as too much of a problem or liability. They won't want to like it would.
I just don't think there would be enough work for a straight male intimacy coordinator because I think
with the amount of shows on TV right now that any scene, it doesn't have to be Game of Thrones. It doesn't have to be nudity to require.
This is like really unfair, but I think it is the way Hollywood works. I think straight men are supposed to be like, you know, they like doing sex scenes. It makes them feel cool, and like they don't have the same problems that women have. So I think we are less likely to employ straight male, like basically out of insensitivity, we are less likely to employ straight male intimacy coordinators.
Well, yeah, that's my conclusion too. I think it's because I made the comment too. I said, look, the age difference makes a huge part of this. But imagine they're closer in age, right? And the intimacy coordinator is a woman, and the director is a woman, and the other person is a woman. Does his discomfort? Maybe the guy is not the most forthcoming person. I said the guy who plays Patty in the show, he's not the most he's a pretty droopy looking dude. What if the guy's body conscious, self-conscious about how he looks, self-conscious about doing the scene? That's not unheard of.
But he's also expected to be more self-aware and aware of what his sensitivities are compared to a teenager.
No, the example I'm saying, I understand about this actor. I'm saying, but imagine now we take two actors that are closer in age. Is the guy just supposed to be like, what if I want a guy to talk about with this stuff? Or is he supposed to just be like, sorry, too bad. You have to both be accommodating and take it like a champ.
Because the truth is that the liabilities that have occurred before are usually when the woman expresses she was uncomfortable.
Unless
in
you're
a
Olivia
scene.
Wilde and Harry Styles, and then she's like, bow chicka wow wow. And
well, she
How much
started
you guys talk about
directing
that?
sexual scenes between her boyfriend and a woman she hated. So I don't know what that was about.
I just
How
think
often do you guys talk about all of the Don't Worry Darling stuff?
we did a
a
pretty good
couple of
amount.
episodes we talked about it. It's kind of blown over. I don't think anyone's gonna watch the film.
I just
like how
wanna-
much attention Chris Pine is getting as like someone who's clearly miserable.
I just think it's fair to point out that like your focus is on how clearly exploitative this is. I'm just making a minor sidebar that I think the guy should have a right to feel discomfort and not be. But we can go back.
Yeah,
now.
but it's like you only need to point that out because these scenes are inherently uncomfortable to film.
Mm-hmm.
And if you become adept at compartmentalizing your feelings enough to be able to film them often and not feel a certain type of way about it, that's because you are like a unique outlier, not you know what I mean? Like as an entertainer,
I remember
that would make you an outlier in that way. And I don't think that these scenes should even be on TV, to be totally honest, even if they're framed as something negative. I don't think that's the point. It shouldn't be on screen at all, in my opinion.
Yeah, I tend to fall more in the category of like, at least like maybe it's called just like take what you can get from the degeneracy that is Hollywood. I'm like, well, at least they're portraying the bad.
If you had a slogan, it would be "Take what you can get."
Like at least they're portraying the bad behavior as bad behavior. At least we've got that.
There
going
are
for
still
us.
certain things that would be accurate to medieval Europe that they don't show. So you draw a line somewhere. You have to.
I do also want to point out, I remember reading a story a long time ago that was really interesting. It might have been on the set of True Detective, but they were talking about how they were in it was supposed to be a scene similar to like one of these scenes where it's like they're in like a brothel or something, and there's a lot of people like having sex, and they hired actual porn performers to do like the background roles, like the non-speaking roles in it. And they said that the actors were shocked when they're like, okay, time to get naked. And all the porn performers were like, da, 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 and just standing around nude. And all the regular actors.
Because they're much more comfortable with it.
Yeah, and all the regular actors were like, this is not normal. Because like you said, they've developed, it's like a scab that's formed over. And they've developed that resistance to the awkwardness that should be naturally felt in that position. Right. But now Hollywood seems to be encroaching more and more on that territory and seems to want to make it more about being comfortable in a situation that's inherently not supposed to be comfortable.
And it's also about pushing the boundaries of viewers who see incest on screen in House of the Dragon. Like, there are people shipping a blood niece and uncle on this show.
I have that.
Are they related?
Yes. I
don't really follow the show, so I don't know.
So they have
the actress I was just talking about. She was not the niece in the show. There was a different actress.
Millie Alcock's character.
Yes, and Matt Smith. Yeah. They're related in the show, and they had a kiss scene, an incestuous kiss scene at a brothel in the show, and people are shipping this like it's a normal couple. Don't tell me you're framing it as bad when the viewers are actually debating whether these two characters are good for each other, and they're related by blood in the show.
Deviant art and Tumblr have seeped into the real world.
It's not even just Tumblr and Deviant art. This is mainstream. It's in porn. It's in now like a mainstream television show that millions of households are watching. So
it says, love how people were disgusted by Jaime and Cersei, but are totally on board for some uncle-niece incest, and Daemon should be treated as a groomer because she always wanted it. She also wanted it has been a cop-out for a lot of older men using teenage girls. I also want to point out that we have an epidemic of like women teachers who get away with like it's sexual assault when a male teacher assaults a female student, but when a female teacher assaults a male student, it's sexual misconduct. Mm-hmm. They always soften the language, so it is not unique to any one gender.
You know what's more interesting? How the media has a really hard time talking about when female teachers become sexually involved with underage female minors.
Oh wow!
There's been a couple of cases of this, and the media does not know what to do with this kind of conversation, so they try to ignore it.
Yeah,
there was a scene in.
It's all abuse, just to be clear.
There's a scene in the movie, Not Another Teen Movie, where they're like, did you guys ever see Cruel Intentions? Mm-mm. Well, in Cruel Intentions, Ryan Phillippe and Sarah Michelle Gellar's character are like a stepbrother and sister, and it's like a creepy Dangerous Liaisons type thing where she's like trying to get him to do something to her, and her reward to him is that he can finally have sex with her. And then in Not Another Teen Movie, they make the characters related, and the girl keeps going after the guy played by Chris Evans, and he's constantly like, "Why are you doing this? This is freaking gross." And then finally in one scene, he's like, "But we're related." She goes, "Only by blood." It's a comedy. Weird. It was
supposed to be a joke.
It was a joke, but it just time kept going.
Like a superhero movie. Yeah, it makes sense.
Exactly, perfect. Yeah, it was that. By the way, if anybody here has not seen Not Another Teen Movie, everyone should see that. That was a fantastic time.
I did see that at one point.
Comedies were allowed to be funny.
It was okay. I don't know.
I've never seen it.
You gotta see it. There's the hippie album.
I have a lot to do in terms of watching movies.
Yes,
I can't really take any other requests right now.
So it says, your daughter was spotted at a whorehouse, Mike King. So what? With her uncle. And then it says 404 bad connection.
Also in the scene, he ditches her at the brothel and she has to go home.
So he left her. So she had to
and
walk of shame.
And then she loses her virginity right after that to like her... He's like a guy that like
the
guards,
guy that guards her. Yep. I remember
night.
that scene.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, I don't know. I just don't think that things like this should be on TV.
Amen.
And what's the solution? Certainly Hollywood isn't going to get any less degenerate. The solution, in my opinion, would be decency laws. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but that's my opinion.
Funny how they always, like, Hollywood is horrible at show, don't tell, except when it's this stuff. Like, right. Hollywood is horrible at show, don't tell, except for when they actually want to show.
So it's clearly intentional.
These scenes would be the perfect place to you would rather they didn't do the storyline at all. I'm saying you can do the storyline, but maybe implied would work better.
No, they can do a storyline. But they don't have to show everything like that.
You could imply it.
I don't think that they should be barred from having a storyline.
So maybe the goal here would be to imply what happened rather than actually show it.
That is basically what was done when we did have decency laws like that. So it's not impossible. It's not even difficult, actually.
All right. Hannah Claire, what do you think?
Well, I've only seen the first episode of this, and I didn't watch Game of Thrones, so I can't comment on all of it. I think that the question of should there or should there not be intimacy coordinators is hard to unpack because, unless suddenly decency laws are introduced tomorrow.
Or maybe the idea is to be more open and honest about what an intimacy coordinator's purpose actually is, and it's not to make the actors feel more comfortable. It's to cover up liability for the studios.
But, then you could say, if we had decency laws, they wouldn't need to do that because that wouldn't be there. I think part of it is this. There's no way for Game of Thrones to tell its story without the heavy depiction of sex.
It's part of
that's part of the brand.
And violence.
And I don't personally feel like I need to watch it. Partially because I'm not interested in the plotline, also partially because I don't know. Sometimes when you think about older directors, those, even if they try to make it as small a set as possible during sex scenes, there's still a guy operating a boom mic and there's still everyone's PR agents and all of that feels creepy to me. And so the same way that you wouldn't consume other content that actively puts people at risk in order to make it, I don't feel the need to suddenly get into this knowing what I know about it. Yeah. If you like Game of Thrones, you're going to watch this regardless of how old the actress was when you watch it. You're not very few people are going to take a moral stance on this.
Fair point. Thanks for watching this clip, guys. If you want to see full episodes or follow us on social media, links are in the description below. Bye.